Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's special Stratford City Council meeting. Joining me in the council chamber this evening is our clerk, Tatiana Defoe, and our deputy clerk, Chris Bantock. We have regrets this evening from our CAO, Joan Thompson, who is under the weather, and Councillor Seven has let us know that he can't attend this evening's meeting. With that said, I will turn it over to the clerk.
Through you, your worship. Item number 2 is declarations of pecuniary interest, and if there are any to be stated, please state the general nature thereof. Councillor
Vasilakos.
Yes, item 3.1 and 5.1 for Optimism Place. I'm on their capital campaign committee, and there is a personal financial component to that participation.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing none.
The next item is adoption of the addenda to the special council agenda. The first addenda being to add a delegation request from Optimism Place, and the second being a report of the Infrastructure, Transportation and Safety Committee. And prior to today's meeting, a second addenda was published to add a report of the Director of Infrastructure and Development Services. And there is a motion that the addendas to the special agenda of council dated August 10th, 2022 be added to the agenda as printed.
Moved by Councillor Ritzman, second by Councillor Burback. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried.
Item number 3 is hearings of deputations and presentations. And item 3.1 is a delegation request from Optimism Place. And there is a motion that the delegation by representatives of Optimism Place regarding their request for financial support be heard.
Moved by Councillor Burback and second by Councillor Bunting. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. We'll have the clerk bring our guests in.
Hi there, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can.
Welcome, thanks so much for joining us. I'll turn the meeting over.
Thank you, Your Worship. And thank you, councillors. My name is Jasmine Clark. I'm the Executive Director at Optimism Place Women's Shelter and Support Services. I appreciate this opportunity to share more information related to Optimism Place, our capital expansion project, and our request for financial support. In hearing this, my hope is that you can make a more informed decision as it relates to the value of supporting our request. Optimism Place is Perth County's only emergency shelter for women and their children experiencing violence. We're approaching our 40th year of providing that service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Every day, all day, and through the night while most of the city sleeps, our staff answers calls from women in our community who don't have a safe space to live. For thousands of families, we've been a safe refuge, a place to find support and resources, and a place to temporarily call home. As a not-for-profit organization, we contribute to the health, safety, well-being, and security of some of our community's most vulnerable citizens. To do so is our mission, our focus, and our relentless commitment. Every 6 days in Canada, a woman is killed by an intimate partner. More than 45% of women will experience some sort of violence in an intimate relationship. We receive calls daily from concerned friends, family members, neighbors, and employers. In the period from April 1st, 2019 to March 31st, 2020, we received 1,349 calls to our crisis line, as compared to the period from April 1st, 2021 to March 31st, 2022, where we received 2,144, a 60% increase in just 2 years. Last year alone, we had to turn away 335 callers because our beds were full. We can no longer be satisfied with the status quo. As a community, we have a collective responsibility to work together towards creating solutions. In imagining a future without violence, Optimism Place board and staff needed to create a bold vision around expanding our current shelter, which has largely been out of space with limited availability to be modified to meet the increasing need. Over the past several years, our organization has dedicated a significant amount of time, resources, and focus to ensuring that we reduce the number of times we do not have a bed available when a woman makes the difficult decision to pick up the phone and call our crisis line. We've barely made do with our current space with room sharing, adding cots and additional beds, converting and repurposing space to accommodate more bedrooms, and adapting our programming to improve our ability to support more women to find safe and affordable housing in an impossible market. The COVID-19 pandemic made this especially difficult and accelerated our need to grow. Length of stay in shelter has been steadily trending upwards. 10 years ago, women were moving on from shelter to safe housing in 6 weeks on average. This is no longer the case as the housing crisis creates significant and compounding barriers. The limited beds we do have are not as available as they once were, as our inflow outpaces our outflow. The sheets on those beds barely cooling off before another family moves into an empty bedroom. Our shelter expansion plan will mean we will go from having 7 bedrooms with 13 beds to 17 bedrooms with 28 beds, a 142% increase in our capacity. To date, Optimism Place has conditionally secured 80% of the $5 million required to add 6,000 square feet of residential space on our existing footprint at 270 Freeland Drive. Optimism Place has been a strong collaborator with the City of Stratford, in particular the Social Services Department, as it relates to their efforts to end homelessness. Since its inception in 2018, we've participated in our community's flagship Housing First program, the Supportive Housing of Perth program, also referred to and known as SHOP. We have 2 staff who carried a combined caseload of up to 20 high acuity chronically homeless participants, and I sit on the leadership committee that governs that program. We have partnered with the city to present at the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness Conference on the collaborative work being done between the municipality and the violence against women sector right here in Stratford and Perth County. We've made a clear commitment to partner with the city's Social Services Department to ensure women experiencing homelessness and who are at greater risk of violence can access low barrier shelter and wraparound supports. Since April 2021, we've provided emergency respite stay 59 times to women experiencing homelessness in the city of Stratford, who would have otherwise been served by the municipality. In our last fiscal year, 6 SHOP participants occupied bed space in the shelter 67% of the year while we worked to meet their needs, connect them to resources, and move them into permanent housing. We'd like to continue to deepen our partnership with the city, and the additional bed spaces that we are adding will allow us to do so. Providing the support in our request will ensure that these additional beds will be built. Most importantly, demonstrating support from the city will allow us to finalize our time-sensitive conditional funding agreement that will secure 80% of our project funds. I appreciate your time tonight and your consideration. At this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions about our organization or about our project.
All right, any member of council have a question for Ms. Clark? Councillor Henderson.
I just want to thank you that you're finally able to add more units in our city. This will help many more women and children not be on the street or stay with an abuser because they have no place to go. And my thoughts on it's a very wise investment on our part. And I'm glad that I was on the board for a while, and I remember how frustrating it was that we couldn't get more beds. So I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Anyone further? Councillor Henderson?
Can I move the staff report?
Staff report is under item 5.1. So if we could leave it until we get to that one, that might be easier, just so we follow sequential. Okay.
Sorry.
All right. Jasmine, thank you so much for taking the opportunity to speak to us. I see Mr. Bantock has raised his hand on the screen there, or maybe he didn't mean to. He didn't mean to. Okay. So thanks so much, Jasmine. I greatly appreciate your presentation with regard to the services, and you're a valued partner to the city. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We'll go to the next item, Mr. Bantock.
The next item is a report of the Infrastructure, Transportation and Safety Committee. And item 4.1 is the Accommodation Licensing Bylaw. The motion from that item reads that in accordance with Schedule 4 of the Notice Policy C310, that a public meeting be held to hear from the public regarding the draft Accommodation Licensing Bylaw, and that following the public meeting, staff prepare a report outlining public input received on the draft Accommodation Licensing Bylaw with a recommended approach for implementation. And the motion is that the report of the Infrastructure, Transportation and Safety Committee dated August 10th, 2022 be adopted as printed.
Councillor Vasilakos and Councillor Bunting moving and seconding. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
Item 5 is report of the Director of Infrastructure and Development Services, and item 5.1 is financial request update, Optimism Place expansion. And there is a motion that the information provided in report titled Financial Request Update, Optimism Place expansion be received, and that Council provide financial support as requested by Optimism Place for their expansion for a total of $82,495.25 using G-872 general grants.
Right, Councillor Henderson, I noted you wanted to move that, and Councillor Burback, you wanted to second that. Discussion. If not, all those in favor, oh, Councillor Gaffney, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I hope my sound is working better tonight. I guess just a question of clarification. Is this approving this request, does it become a grant that's specifically labeled building permit and all the other things that go through Taylor's department? Or is this going to be reflected more as a direct grant to the project?
I think what it will note, it'll be a grant to the project. It is specific though to where we came up with the formula for the money, which is the permit.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Henderson?
I'd just like to say, we know how much it's costing us to build 27 units. So council is trying to build 15 units. This is a much wiser investment.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Councillor Gaffney?
Just so we're clear, that was not the intent of my question. My question was for clarification. I think this is a project that has been a long time needed. I endorse that sponsorship completely. So thank you.
Thank you. Chair of Finance always wants to know how it's going to be recorded in the books. I get it. All right. Is there anything further? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? And that's carried.
Item number 6 is reading of the bylaws, and there is one bylaw listed, that being the confirmatory bylaw.
All right. Councillor Clifford and Councillor Burback moving first and second reading of tonight's confirmatory bylaw 6.1. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Third and final reading of the confirmatory bylaw is Councillor Bunting and Councillor Beattie. Anything further? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? And that's carried. And at this time, we take a motion to adjourn for an in-camera session. Pardon me? Oh, okay. So you have some free time till 7:30, the clerk has told me. So motion to adjourn and to reconvene in 17 minutes. Councillor Vasilakos and Councillor Ritzman. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? And that's carried.